From the east, house of light, may wisdom dawn in us, so we may see all things in clarity. From the north, house of night, may wisdom ripen in us, so we may know all from within. From the west, house of transformation, may wisdom be transformed into right action, so we may do what must be done. From the south, house of the eternal sun, may right action reap the harvest, so we may enjoy the fruits of planetary being. From above, house of heaven, where star people and ancestors gather, may their blessings come to us now. From below, house of earth, may the heartbeat of her crystal core bless us with harmonies to end all war. From the center, galactic source, which is everywhere at once, may everything be known as the light of mutual love. Ayum hunabaku, eva maya e maho. Ayum hunabaku, eva maya e maho. Ayum hunabaku, eva maya e maho. Every monkey deserves this precise expression. So we know what a special day it is. Spectral monkey. A beautiful day to dissolve, to release ourselves into the present moment, to check our cup and make sure it's empty again so we can receive the teaching today, which is a very full body of knowledge. Today we have time and telepathy, organic order. And this morning we'll be covering the context, which is the DNA and Earth's electromagnetic field. And then in the afternoon, there will be the full presentation of the tool of the 20 tablets of the law of time. Well, Blue Spectral Monkey, happy birthday. Feliz cumpleaños. You are how many spins old?
I try 86.
86 spins old. That's a very special thing. The most beautiful thing about the synchronic order is how many times a year you can have a birthday. Because you have your actual solar galactic birthday on the 13th calendar. Frequency here? No. I think it's okay. Yep. Hello, spectralizing, just like the way with the smoke setting off the fire alarm. We have to remember that we are bio-solar telepaths. Be careful around the instruments. I'm not sure, David, if we've solved the battery problem or not. Let's see. It's okay. That one sounds good, and I won't shake it. Okay. It's my unbirthday, so I better be careful today. It's this day power transforms patience. Not transforms, power ripens patience. So here we are on the 26th day of this planetary dog moon. And of course, in the synchronic order, we begin with the reading of the kin, which is kin 11, Blue Spectral Monkey. I dissolve in order to play. Releasing illusion, I seal the process of magic with the spectral tone of liberation. I am guided by my own power doubled. Blue Spectral Monkey, the ultimate 11, 11, 11 dissolving. And what is our codon for this week and this quarter? Dissolving, codon 59. So, what are we dissolving? Dissolving the ego of the 1260 world, allowing ourselves to come into the present moment again and again and again, to discover the codes according to the law of time. Over the 7 days, we will receive a vast body of information, but to actually coordinate the synchronic order, we have the Earth Wizard's Almanac. And I believe I saw Randy Bruner walking around with one of these templates. So I would hope that everyone would receive one of these empty templates before you leave, and make sure you have one that you can make copies from, because you need to have 13 of these every quarter of the year, the 13 moon year. And this is what creates the star bundles that you actually burn at the end of the year. And that's a beautiful practice, because in dissolving, by letting go of what has already happened, you can be ready for whatever is about to happen. So this dissolving process comes every moment, in a sense, every moment. Again, we have the possibility to die to our 1260 being and to enter into the space of being awake in the present moment. And in that awake moment is how we can receive what the divine plan is, what we're supposed to do each moment, moment by moment. This is Alpha Day. And according to the seal, monkey, in the Telektonon prophecy, we have the reading for today, which is the prophecy of the 7 generations. I am Valum Votan, witness of time. Telektonon is my gospel. The talking stone of unifying prophecy is my legacy, intended for that special messenger who understands the meaning of my numbers. By my symbolical channel of communication called Telektonon, did I intend this prophecy to be discovered and recovered. Once 40 years had elapsed from the time of the discovery of my Uranian crypt, then would come the recovery, the recollection by my special agent of the numbers, rehearsed and repeated to announce the day of truth. Perfect was the time of my coming. Perfect was my mission. Perfect was the time of my going. Perfect is the discovery of my prophecy. Perfect is the Telechthenon, the little book the angel of the Lord made St. John of Patmos taste and eat, which you now possess, a treasure for the day of truth. What you witness by these words is the last message I gave to my people, the message of 9.13.000, heard from my ark of stone through the Telechthenon, earth spirit speaking tube. To my people I declared, 7 Khatuns are there to follow me, 7 generations, each one guarded by a solar witness, taking account of what you do, each solar witness sealing your time with a prophecy to be known as the book of the 7 generations. And this book is to be opened for the day of truth. After the 7 generations, the end of the Baktun, 10 Baktuns gone, the glorious age of Maya gone, the long count of my days to be completed at 1,440,000 kin, the mystic number of the elect, multiplied by 10. Then will come the 3 Baktuns of Babel, the coming exile of 1260 time. 13 years after this 10th Baktun shall come the last prophetic round, 13 cycles of heaven, each 52 years, followed by 9 cycles of hell, each also 52 years. When the 3rd round of heaven begins, the messenger of the last call will come to you, Quetzalcoatl Kukulkan, the prophet by name. And when the 13th heaven cycle is over, then will come the complete destruction of all we are and know. Before the 12th Baktun is over, 2 priests bearing false witness, ornamented with the sacred numbers of 5 and 13, will see to it that the 13th Baktun will be the end of time. Unrelenting will be the roll of the 9 hells into the abyss of fire and madness. In the time of the last hell, though you will be declared free, free you will not be. 10 kings in succession will mark the climax of time. 7 years will follow the ending of the last hell. Then will sound the angel of the 7th trumpet. The 7 thunders will roll. The beast of 7 heads, called G7, will place his mark on your foreheads and hands. The false one from Babylon will return to be embraced by the 11th serpent. Then the day of truth will come, the 7 years of prophecy. And of course we're here in this 7th year of prophecy. We have dynamics. And then to continue reading on the synchronic order, these different levels each day for the levels of the synchronic order, we read the 11.11 for kin 11, code number 11, tone 11. 11:11. Repressed psychic energy is the lubricant of the 4th dimensional personality, endowing it with vibrancy and vitality. Quality and nature of alternative personality is determined by nature of repressed psychic energy in relation to uniqueness of psychogenetic patterning. So we are each a unique psychogenetic pattern, and we each have repressed psychic energy due to our previous life in the 1260. So we're learning to navigate in 4th dimensional time with the release, the lubricant of the 4th dimensional time, which releases us from the bondage of where we've been encased in ego, and releases us when we learn to serve our 4th dimensional holon. Our holon is that which is living according to the divine plan. And our holon can only experience its truth every moment, moment by moment. And the more we drop the baggage of linear time, of thinking that the past has anything to do with the present moment, any thought that we can't do it in the future, all of those irrelevant thoughts bring us into the present moment. And part of the practice is learning to drop all of our sentimental conceptions that make us think that somebody else is going to save us. There's such a profound need at this moment on the planet for complete self-responsibility. For each holon owes allegiance to itself in the way of holding your spot, just as has been spoken of this week. How did you put it? My short-term memory. Every moment, our spot, our block, our slot. Thank you, Mark. Fill your slot. That is your holon. Your slot is your holon. That's what you were born with. Your destiny pattern was set when you were born. And that's not a limiting thing, actually. That's the profound nature of who you are as your psychogenetic composite. You are that being you were born as. And the less you try to escape being that you were born as, the more joy comes into your life, and the more that repressed psychic energy can be released. And then you release yourself from the prison of third-dimensional false time, and you begin to trust more and more and more in all the signals that you receive from the truth in the moment. And you are the only one who can know your truth. No one else can know your truth. As you have lived your life every moment, that is your truth. And that's a gift. The divine plan has given us the gift of that holon lined in the truth of the slot of the moment you are in. And that's why there's tremendous compassion and forgiveness from God, Allah, sacred ones, Great Spirit, Hunabku, however you define it. That energy is compassionate. And at every moment it asks each one of us to live profoundly and fully with self-love to fill our slot. It's really extremely simple.
Someone's laughing. You don't believe you?
Believe me, I think it's just too simple, but it could be. It's good. It's good sometimes when your slot feels completely empty, when you can just be speechless. Sometimes you have profound experiences of the moment. Suddenly you're there. And it's really amazing when you can keep being in that moment of being awake, present. Awake. Awake. All the earth wizards in Pekarkeen know my famous, awake, awake, stay awake. Don't fall asleep. When you do sleep, sleep well, sleep soundly, and then listen to your dreams. It really is simple. Life is profoundly simple when you stay in your slot. It's when you ooze out of your slot and get sloppy and start thinking you can blame others and, say, oh my God, my parents did this to me, and oh my children, and oh my brothers and sisters, and oh my family, my this, my that, my this, my that. We can't do it that way. Personal responsibility, personal discipline. Come back to the moment. Personal responsibility, personal discipline. And when we do that, we are practicing really profound ecology. Because when we take care of our slot, then everybody else's slots have room for them to take care of their slots. So it's really profound. I'm glad we came up with the term slot. I'll try and remember it. But if I don't, come back to self-love and humor, and it's okay.
You sure you're done?
I don't know, honey. You know me.
Yeah, it's my galactic birthday. There's no escaping that fact. I had to figure out, I'm quite sure it's been 86 spins now, and that's very interesting. To be present at this moment with all of you, at this very precise moment, filling my slot. Inside my slot, what I experience is a type of semiconductor chip that has been very, very precisely coded according to a synchronic order of time. And as I go through each day, the semiconductor chip in there gets a little more translucent. Parts of it are absolutely transparent, and there's not too much of it left that's opaque. So that means that most of the codes that were imprinted in my transductor chip that fills my slot have been released, though not all of them have been released. And what I'd like to present today, or what I have to present today, what I'm obliged to present today, what the semiconductor chip says I am to present today, has to do with the topic, the next unfolding of the law of time. Yesterday we stated that, among many, many other things, that the correction in time has two particular functions. One is to normalize and regularize the biomass constant. That's the normal, regular order of the whole unitary phenomenon, which we refer to as life. The biomass constant has been placed in a state of imbalance because of the deviant species, which has been operating on a timing frequency that is contrary to the natural timing frequency, and as a result of that the deviant species has created a disturbance and a denormalization of the biomass constant. So the one function is to stabilize the biomass constant, and to actually also to stabilize the geomagnetic and the electromagnetic field of the planet, because all of these, as I said, all these fields are in resonance. The biopsychic field, the gravitational field, the electromagnetic field form a unitary resonant field model, or topocosm. And that the other function of regularizing time is to establish a condition of universal telepathy within the species that has been deviant. So today's topic, which is time and telepathy, the organic order, really comes from this description that I've just been giving you, the regularization of the biomass, the normalization of the biomass constant. The biomass constant number is 73, which refers to the 73 overtone chromatics that coordinate the cycle of the planet Velatropa 24.3 as it goes around the sun. It has 73 5-day sequences, which are the overtone chromatic that coordinate the DNA of the biosphere in a normal order, in congruence with the effect of the solar radiation and the cosmic radiation. Vernadsky's definition of the biosphere is that the biosphere is the region on Earth for the transformation of cosmic energy. The biosphere is the region on Earth for the transformation of cosmic energy, because the Earth is continuously being bathed in various waves, and plasmic waves, radiation waves, cosmic waves, solar waves, all of that, of different forms of what we would refer to as cosmic energy. So you can't separate the functioning of the DNA from the reception of these waves of cosmic energy. And the other factor is the telepathy. The fact is that the telepathy is the normal order of communication in the cosmos. And that in the human species, because we have been deviant, we've been so deviant that for many years or even centuries, the very existence of telepathy was doubted. Okay. People had to create scientific fields like parapsychology to then justify having experiments to see if they could actually prove to other people that telepathy existed, or whether telepathy existed or not. And they invented little games like different cards, putting people in rooms and having them guess which cards other people in the other rooms were looking at, which is not a very everyday activity, but that's when was the last time you did that, just as a matter of course? Oh dear, let's go and play that card game again. Anyway, it seems that nowadays, at least and of course we have to realize that we're just dealing with basically the current paradigm in Western science. In Russian science, it's not quite like that. For instance, Russian science is very different because it did develop in this century under the influence of Vladimir Vernadsky. Russian science calls itself not scientific materialism, but scientific cosmism, because it recognizes that the Earth and the human within the Earth is a part of a whole system, which is part of the whole system of the heliosphere or the solar system, and that the solar system is a function of the larger system called the galactic order. So you can find very interesting contrast to, for instance, the flat universe model, which the Western science has come up with. One of the papers I was given in Russia recently was called The Biophysical Model of the Energy Informational Organism of the Universe. Okay, the biophysical model of the energy informational organism of the universe. And interestingly enough, in the description of the universe in this way, the primal atom is described as a cube, just as we're saying that we were discussing yesterday about the heptagon of mind and the primal cubic parton, that the primal atomic structure is seen as cubic, and then what you see in the final model of the universe is anything but flat. It's a torsional field with a type of rotating double DNA Möbius bands that then feed into a central structure. Okay, and that is continuously feeding and creating energy that then goes out and then returns back into itself. Okay, that's very, very different, absolutely different from a flat universe model. That's a much more of a Möbius torsional field with a central flux system within it. Just by contrast, and that model of the universe is much closer to the model of the universe that the law of time describes, which is a model that's based on what is referred to as a radial matrix, and that radial matrix does not necessarily need to be considered just as a flat plane, but can be very much described in that way as a torsional field, where you have a central flux and then different Möbius bands spinning out from that, then ultimately feeding back into the central flux. The central flux would be the center, for instance, of the galaxy, would be actually the visible point of a cross-section of this flux of what you might consider to be a very large etheric multidimensional flux tube. And that would be much closer to describing the actual order of the universe. So of course the perceptions that we develop about the universe, of course, come from the conditioned reflexes that are developed from the instruments that we use to examine and measure the universe. And so, of course, in this way, the instruments we use, for instance, telescopes and microscopes and clocks, okay, will give us a picture of the universe that is either like you have micro or macro, and then the clock creates actually within the mind the flat plane, the flat land, the flat order, okay? So you're going to end up with basic model like that. In the Western science, there's always been a struggle between the, particularly in more recent times, between a biological organismic view of the universe and the view of the physicists and the astrophysicists, okay? And that in this view, of course, because the entire bias is toward a purely physicalist model, that clearly the physicists have the upper hand, generally speaking, in making the final definitions of the universe, and then the physicists come up with things like the flat universe, and then all the newspaper editors agree. And then that becomes consensus reality, and that's how the world, the 1260 flatland world, becomes ever more ignorant. It's amazing that, you know, as we're thinking about this, that 400 years ago, 300 years ago, when the people set off to sail around the world, some people said, hey, it's a flat world, you're going to fall off. But they didn't fall off, and now we have a flat universe. So I don't think we made any progress. I just extended that out there, and now, hey, don't let your rocket ship go too far, it'll fall off. So the vision of the universe that is presented by the law of time is highly organismic, okay, and it's a resonant field model in which even the biological, or the organization of what we call biology, is also a function of different fields of resonance coming into focus with each other and then precipitating what we might call form or matter. The DNA was discovered in 1953 by Watson and Crick, and of course it was discovered in a time that was very intensely 1260. So the understanding of the DNA was very alienated. We all know, we say the DNA, that's us, and yet the actual research and investigation of the DNA occurs in an alienated environment. Okay, it's done in test tubes and through genetic manipulation and all the forms of microtechnology that have been developed to deal with it, but as if it was not us. It's outside of us. It's a phenomenon that's out there. What the actual metaprogram of the DNA is, and what the DNA, how the DNA actually comes into existence, how it functions as a unitary organism, does not even come into the investigation of Western science. Though, as I said, in Russian science, for instance, it's a very, very different type of model or order that exists in understanding that. The DNA, of course, consists of the 64 different codons, or code words, which consist then of actually different amino acids and enzymes. There's 4 basic amino acid letters that create different structures, that create the 64 primary structures. The DNA letters are each written with two, can be written with 2 lines. Well, I won't disturb the circumpolar bridge yet. We'll let that be. Kisses and hugs. Okay. So and when they're written in this way as positive, negative charges in this way, that so you have like two unbroken lines, a broken and an unbroken line, two broken lines, and then an unbroken and a broken line, and then these combine in any set of three, then to create one codon. Okay, so that any codon, for instance, then, for instance, this week we're dealing with this one here, so that actually consists of this letter, and then again that same, excuse me, then this letter here, and then this letter. So it consists of this letter, and this letter. So these here are this is this letter right here, and then you have this letter right here, and then this letter coming here. So any codon is written with any three of the four letters. They can be all the same three letters or any combination of them. And in this way, they create an absolute possibility of 64 absolute possibilities in this way. And of course, when the DNA code words are written in this manner, with this type of writing, okay, we recognize that the broken line is what's referred to in Chinese science as a yin, and the unbroken line is referred to as a yang, and the two broken lines create what's called the thymine, okay, and represent thymine. The broken line with the unbroken line above is guanine. The unbroken line with the broken line above is cytosine, and then the two unbroken lines are adenine, and those are the letters, the amino acids that then create the 20 or so enzymes which constitute the entire DNA code. In 1973, German scientist Schoenberger was the one who made the discovery that, hey, that's the same thing as the I Ching when you write it in this type of language. And so I had not been totally aware of Schoenberger's work when I also began to work with this information in the early 1980s, all of which is in the book Earth Ascending. What we've been dealing with in the discovery of the law of time is what we could call a cumulative progression of a buildup of information. In other words, as soon as one stage is completed, then it precipitates information for the next stage, okay? So we actually have, for instance, we started when we made the discovery of the timing frequencies, then it was clear, well, the first stage is we need to have a calendar that is completely in tune with this timing frequency. So the first stage, okay, to correct for the incorrect timing frequency, we need a calendar that's in the 1320 frequency, and that is in tune with the biological order of the human species, and that clearly is that clearly is the 28-day cycle, and hence the 13-moon 28-day calendar, which then correlates with the 13 cycles of the moon that go around the Earth as the Earth spins around the sun once. So once that was clear, and then we knew that the 13-moon calendar was correlated with the 1320 timing matrix of the Tzolk'in, and then the next level or stage, cumulative level or stage opened up, and then that created the dream spell. Okay, the dream spell then was the dream spell is absolutely based on the functioning of the 13-moon calendar. It says very specifically in a number of places in the dream spell text that you cannot really understand or operate the dream spell unless you are operating on the 13-moon calendar. You have to have that as the basis, because that's putting you in the right timing frequency, and if you're following that calendar, then the fourth dimensional order of time then begins to open up, and then you can begin to understand how to use these tools of the fourth dimensional order of time. So once that had been established, that was from 1990, then it was the 13-moon calendar, then the dream spells in 1991 and 1992, and then at the end of the year of the time shift, which is 40 years after the opening of the tomb, 40 years after the discovery of the DNA, then came the next unfolding, which was the telectanon, okay, and then the whole instrument of the telectanon playing board, as it's called, which then takes the 13-moon calendar and the dream spell, and then puts that into the interdimensional or the fourth dimensional interplanetary map of the solar system, and then with a whole cosmology behind that, and then establishing that as the basis for understanding chronometry and synchronometry. Okay, that those are the two fundamental aspects of what we might call time computation or time measure. Chronometry is the measure of what we call the cyclical time, and synchronometry is the measure of the patterns of synchronicity that occur within fourth dimensional time. Now, these are all things that only have meaning if you actually experience it. If you haven't experienced it while you're hearing my words, and it could just be, hey, that's blah blah blah, or you know, you have to, like we always say, you know, you can't tell someone what an apple tastes like. You have to give them the apple and have them bite it and eat it. So that's the same with everything I'm saying right now. I've eaten the apple, and so I'm telling you about it. But you have to really eat the apple too, for this to have any meaning for you. But so that when the telectanon then was from 1994-95, the telectanon was created as a tool or an instrument, and so then by 1996, then when we got to the end of the electric wizard year and the beginning of the blue self-existing storm year, then you get to the point of, okay, now comes the RINRI project. The RINRI project, as you recall, is dependent on the understanding of the human and the planet holon in the dream spell, and then the part about the psychrono units is dependent upon the actual form and structure of the telectanon playing board, because as you recall, the psychrono units, you have 208 of the red, white, yellow, and blue squares, and you have 52 of these, and the 208 correspond to the existence and the understanding of the cube journey, which is part of the telectanon. If we didn't have the cube journey, then this could not have been realized. Okay, if we were not already practicing the cube journey, where you have every moon 16 days in the cube, 16 times 13 is 208, which accounts for these 208 kin outside of the galactic activation portals, then we would not have had the possibility of actually doing the RINRI project, which was actually to further open the Psi Bank, and of course the 52 galactic activation portals then in the 13 sets of 4, the 13 quartets, okay, is what then corresponded to the first day, the 6th day, the 23rd day, and the 28th day, and then each of those days coordinated either 2 days of the Earth Walk or 2 days of the Heaven Walk, so that accounts for the whole of the Tzolk'in. as the matrix of what is referred to as the psi bank. So if the telectanon had not been developed and we weren't practicing the telectanon, we would not have had the means to understand how to use the tzolk'in and how to use the tzolk'in as the program to begin to open up the psi bank. And so that's a very, very important point. I'm just trying to show you how these different stages, it's cumulative progression, so that once we then began to function with the RINRI project, and once we began to open the Psi-chrono units, then came in the fall of the self-existing storm year, not too many moons after we started the RINRI project, then came the 260 postulates of the dynamics of time. I was sitting on an airplane and flying back from, I think, from Washington or New York or someplace back to Arizona, where we'd set up a base camp there that fall. And the man next to me was an engineer. He was a space engineer, and I noticed that he was reading a book called The Dynamics of Space. And I was kind of looking over at the book there, and I said, he's reading something called The Dynamics of Space, and he was one of these kind of like Department of Defense, ballistic missile, secret Raytheon type of people. He got very nervous with me sitting next to him, and he moved after a while. But I thought to myself, if there's a dynamics of space, there must be a dynamics of time. It just hasn't come into existence yet. And so I thought about that, and then I got back to the little base that we had there in Tucson, and I said, most certainly there is a dynamics of time, and I began to think about that, and then I saw that it was a whole logical order of understanding. And so I began to consider what that might be. In the beginning of the dynamics of time, it says the dynamics of time in relation to the dynamics of space, showing the evolution of time as consciousness, including principles for the construction of vehicles for time travel. 260 postulates, because I saw, the whole purpose of the dynamics of space was as I was looking at it, I said, that's simple stuff. It's X, Y coordinates. It's determining if you're going at this velocity, how far and how long it will take to get from this point here to that point there. And of course, that's what's used for ballistic missiles or for getting rockets to Mars or whatever. And I said, that's easy street to figure that stuff out. And I said, but then that must be the same. It must be the same if you're going to have time travel. There must be some dynamics of space that then gives you the possibility of time travel. And I also knew that the dynamics of space took a little bit of time to evolve. He started with Newton and people in the 17th and 18th century figuring out, Descartes and Newton figuring out all the XY coordinate stuff and law of gravity and all that. And then slowly developing the science of ballistics and so on. But that took a couple hundred years. And so I thought, okay, we're nowhere near perfecting what it is to have time travel. We all know about the potential of it. 300 years ago, people would hardly have believed that you could fly a rocket to the moon. Okay, and yet, today that's common type of thing, more or less. There's a lot of junk in space too. But I thought, okay, then there must be the same thing applies for time travel. But for there to be the possibility of time travel, you have to work out the dynamics of time, just like the dynamics of space were worked out. So, and then there was a passage from the prophecy, which says, 019 is my code. In it are all demonstrations of the wisdom that is always close and near, but which comprehends the web of galactic being and all forms of its natural orders in time. Just as 19 is the power of God's mercy, so 0 is the fullness and emptiness all at once, which characterize the nature of mind and all it can know. I contemplated that, and I thought, well, of course, the dynamics of time is constructed of 20 sections going from 0 to 19, and each section is going to have 13 logical postulates. So once I had that clear, I sat down, and it started to come. It came very quickly. This was all done in probably less than 2 weeks. That's why I say I'm really a semiconductor chip. And it's just a matter of like being in frequency with the right time, and then, going bong like that, or seeing the guy with the space dynamics to click it off. So I remember at one point I got there, just as I think I got through the first 13 sections, or 0 through 13, and I thought, oh my God, how can this be? How can I go on? I have 7 more sections to go, and each section is very logically built up. It's a whole set of logics, and goes, each section is a set of logics, and within each section there's an intricate set of logics, and that's very hard brain energy to be that focused. And I remember I was sitting there, I was on the day Lunar Dragon, I remember, and I was just getting into the section 14, and I thought, wow, how am I going to finish this? Where is this going to lead? And as I was sitting there, almost at the point of despair of how I was going to be able to finish this, again, it was like, did I chew off too much? And then as I sat there, then I had a very spontaneous vision. And it was literally a vision of the stairway leading up to the throne of God. But it was so incredibly immense. The stairs were spiraling like this, and there were like what we might call angelic orders on all sides of it. And it was something like a voice was calling, well, you want to come up? Come on up. Okay. So I started to go up on this, and it was just so incredibly immense. I got to a little ways, and I could see like it was really a long ways to go. And I said, hey, I get the picture. I'm satisfied. I'm going back down. I'll finish it. And so I finished it. Of course, the 19th section, the 19th section is simply called God. I had seen enough there to say, okay, I know what that is. You don't have to take me any farther. I'll get too exhausted. If you take me farther, I'll never get back. So that was completed then, and I thought, well, that's plenty. Now, so that's the 13-moon calendar, the dream spell, the Telektanon, the Rinri project, and the 20 tablets. Okay, so that's 5 different levels or stages of the unfolding of the law of time, and that was by the fall of 1996. But there was a whole other kind of prehistory of the discovery of the law of time. And the prehistory of the discovery of the law of time is absolutely encoded in this book here, Earth Ascending. Now, Earth Ascending, of course, is the text in which we have a complete description of the resonant field model, okay, which is, again, the gravitational field. Just do some more stretch at the board stuff. Okay. Let's see. Okay. See if we can keep that much of it. When we talk about that, it's the visualization or description of the resonant field model is very easy. You have a gravitational field. You have the electromagnetic field, and then perpendicular to that, then you have what's called the biopsychic field. And so these fields are all in resonance. They create anything but a flat universe. And then there's a core at the center. When this becomes any planetary phenomenon, there's an axis that goes through the center. You have a positive charge, a negative charge. Okay, so this here is the electromagnetic field. This is the gravitational field, and this is the biopsychic field. The biopsychic field, the field connects the gravitational field and the electromagnetic field, and that connects. They're connected here. That's a very key point, is that the biopsychic field and the electromagnetic field are connected at the north and south pole. And this would be true for any spherical model. That's why this is referred to as a topocosm. Any type of localized spherical form which creates its own order or cosm, okay, topocosm. And so this is the basis of the understanding of the whole entire planetary field. But in the Earth ascending, I'd also, as I said, I was able to realize that in the magic square of 8, as it's called, okay, that when you have a square of 8, okay, that and you put the numbers in there, okay, they're all like that, etc. That any set of any of the rows of numbers, and this is on map 8, the first presentation of it is in map 8 of Earth ascending, that the numbers all add up, of every row add up to 260. And then also every row this way, they add up to 260. And when I saw that, I said, well, that describes the DNA, and it also shows, because there's 64 squares here, so each of those units there corresponds to one of the DNA codons, okay? So I said, okay, then put the DNA codons in there, and then you see that the arrangement of the DNA codons is such that any sequence of them, vertically or horizontally, that adds up to 260. Of course, 260 is the same as the Tzolk'in matrix. Okay, so that's the 1320, and this 64 is the DNA. Okay, so from that, then I was able to when I made that particular discovery, then very rapid process of revelation occurred, which then resulted in the 50 maps that constitute the text Earth Ascending. But as I was working all that out, I saw that, well, where does this fit within this model here? Okay, so that was the next problem that I had to deal with, was what is the relationship of this to this model? We know that the biopsychic field is a function of the DNA, and that the 260, I knew that referred to the timing matrix. So I saw, of course, you can't separate the evolution of the DNA from a particular timing sequence. Okay, that's what the nature of evolution is. At one point, things are triggered. At one point, you go from the earliest stages of life, plant life, and so on, and then you have the amoebas and the reptiles, the fish and the reptiles and the mammals and all that, and that's all a function of a particular timing process, and that timing process is obviously coordinated by a timing frequency, and so all of that coding or information is kept within the planetary field, and so how that is kept in the planetary field is through the existence of what is referred to as the psi bank, and the psi bank is the memory, the self-regulating memory, information storage, and retrieval system of the planet, and particularly in the coordination of the DNA as it manifests in different forms through the evolutionary cycles. And so I also intuited that the DNA is in its primary phase is actually a frequency, and it's a frequency that is coordinated by a timing frequency, then to manifest as particular codons that then arrange in different forms that then create the different forms of life. And so I posited that the psi bank actually exists in resonance with the electromagnetic field around the planet, and being in resonance with the electromagnetic field around the planet, then the planet form is a spherical form, okay, and so as a spherical form, it is divided into this is 360 degrees, 360 degree circle, and so that 360 degree circle is divided into four large major parts of 90 degrees each, okay, so that you have always you have what you might call a night side, which has two halves to it, as we can see, and a day side that has two halves to it. The noon is the obvious dividing part in the day. The night has its invisible dividing part, so that there are four parts to the psi bank, which are referred to as the four psi bank plates. We had this up here yesterday, which just right here, what we're looking at down here, the four psi bank plates, as they exist in this manner here, that they create. You're just seeing a 360 degree thing pulled out and made flat like that, so you can observe it. But I saw that in that case that the constituent form of the psi bank was in this form of these four plates, each one constituted of two tzolk'ins in mirror symmetry to each other, so that you create all in all 260 and 260 is 520. As I said, all in all, that you have 2,080. So you have 260 times 2 and then times 4, which is 2,080 psi chrono units that constitute the psi bank, and that the psi chrono units are the time-bearing units that then coordinate the 64 code words of the DNA, and that this is all held in a resonant field in resonance with the electromagnetic field. At the same year, that's fine, that at the same year that the DNA was discovered, a man named Van Allen discovered what are called the radiation belts, and it was very interesting from the point of view of the law of time. That was a synchronous discovery, that the DNA was discovered at the same time as the Van Allen radiation belts were discovered. The Van Allen radiation belts describe two belts around that constitute the main part of the electromagnetic field. The inner belt is 2,000 miles above the surface, and the outer belt is 11,000 miles above the surface of the Earth. And the synchronous discovery of the DNA and the electromagnetic field to me suggested that was actually because they both function together, that they were discovered at that point in time because they do function together, but the Western science couldn't put that part together, and so with that, then I figured that the psi bank was someplace between the two radiation belts. That in fact, that the psi bank was a function of the resonant patterns that are created by the two radiation belts as they go around the planet. Actually, when you see those radiation belts, they look like that. They have this type of form. Here's the Earth, and then here's. So you have the inner radiation belt, 2,000 miles, and the outer one at 11,000 miles. Of course, when the U.S. Army, when they heard about this discovery, they wanted to see if it was real, and so they blew a hydrogen bomb into the atmosphere between them to see if the radioactivity traveled, and of course it did, so they were the first to blow a hole in the electromagnetic field. You like that, huh? Great. So, and they come in like this because the upper field is mostly electrons, the lower field is heavier protons, okay? And then they flow into the poles, okay? Now, as we know, to complete our model, that this energy flows in, this plasmic energy, solar plasmic energy, goes into the poles, and as we know now, the core of the Earth is an iron octahedral structure, very large structure there. It's not like what we were told when we were kids, big sea of magma or something there, but a big iron crystal that's floating in a sea of magma, then with that has then a series of concentric types of layers around that till we get to the biosphere out here, okay? So the psi bank then is a function of the resonance that occurs between these two radiation belts, and the resonance of positive and negative charges would actually be flowing around in what we would call a double helix pattern, okay? And then that double helix pattern of the resonance of the positive and negative charges of these two fields then would correspond to the double helix pattern of the DNA. So in that way I saw that how the DNA, the actual vibratory frequency structure of the DNA is maintained in the planetary memory field, which is within the two electromagnetic radiation belts surrounding the planet. Now further, isn't this great? I love to do this stuff. Okay, further, when we see this, there's also, like, the magnetic field stretches out away from the sun. If the sun is over here, this magnetic field stretches out like this because the sun is continuously sending out bolonic, that is to say, solar winds. And the solar winds then come around and they create a very large type of electromagnetic structure or form, so that actually if you saw the Earth electromagnetically in space, it would look something like this, like a giant kind of sperm, okay, electromagnetically holding its place in its orbit there. Here's the polar structure, and then over here is the sun. So the sun is continuously sending its radiation here. Now the relationship, I was interesting, Gene back there showed me something yesterday from NASA that showed that last year on May 10th that there was a particular phenomenon where for a moment it appeared that the solar wind had stopped, and as a result of that NASA was able to take a picture at the North Pole, and it showed a huge, what I was talking about, the plasma-colored clouds, huge structure, okay, or spreading over the North Pole, and in this type of spectral iridescent color, and NASA concluded from that there's a relationship between the sun and the North and South Pole. Well, I knew that a long time ago, I said. That was the basis of all of the work I did in Earth Ascending. I guess Gene's got a copy of that here. Here is this phenomenon. This was a year ago on May 10th, when the solar wind stopped for a moment, and then NASA was able to take this photo, and that's what it looked like at the North Pole. This is the material of our Rainbow Bridge, okay, that we're talking about. We're just talking about taking that plasmic material and extending it into a bridge that connects the North and South Pole. And it says here that this finally showed that the display gave direct evidence, however, that Earth's north magnetic pole was connected to the sun, while the Earth's south magnetic pole connected to the distant solar system. Okay, which, if you look in Earth Ascending on map 30, you'll see precisely that. Okay, on map 30 of Earth Ascending, I show how. Okay, we're going to have to just keep moving along here. Okay. God bless everyone who wrote Feliz Cumpleaños for me here. That's me. Dissolve. Okay, that's Kenichahau. And a very, okay, and here's the solar equator. Incidentally, the sun rotates on its axis, okay, more rapidly at the poles than at the equator. The poles turn, more slowly at the poles. Incidentally, the poles turn about every 33 days. Then when you get to the equator, just above the equator here, the average rotation of the sun is 28 days. That's something very few people know. But that correlates. The solar rotation just north and south of its equator is at 28 days, turns once. That's the same as the moon going around the Earth every 28 days. That's the same as the female biological cycle every 28 days. That's the same as the calendar that the dolphins keep in their teeth every 28 days. We're dealing with cosmic biological facts and information. So on the sun, at 30 degrees south and 30 degrees north, and here's the axis, you have about 11.3 year cycle, 2 11.3 year cycles, and what you have is the pulsation of the sunspots. You have a plus and a minus. Takes them 11.3 years to get to this point here, and then they switch polarity. And you have the negative up here, and the positive one down here, and then they go again. Right now, for instance, right here we had a cycle that began in 1989. Here we are, 2000, and when this whole cycle is complete, 2012. Okay, so this is all part of the whole Mayan prophecy program. All of this I had described in Earth Ascending, and on map 30 I show how these poles, this movement of these sunspots actually then affects what happens precisely at the Earth's poles, and that's exactly what's responsible for the ejection of what are called the aurora borealis and the aurora australis. So here, some other information. This is we talk about coronal mass ejections. This is what we're talking about. Okay, and the coronal mass ejections have been of a very great magnitude and intensity, unprecedented during this cycle between 1989 and 2000. Coming to that, I'll get to a point of some of those in a few minutes. They had a lot to do, actually, with the 20 tablets of the law of time that occurred exactly between two of these mass ejections. So I had already posited that this movement has a tremendous effect on the poles, and also has a tremendous effect on the psi bank, actually, which is functioning here. In other words, when we're talking about becoming bio-solar telepaths, this is what we're talking about. This is actually the structure of our field of consciousness in relationship to the sun. When we talk about solar consciousness. We're talking about being able to experience this within our own bodily instrument. That's what our bodily instrument is for, is to be able to begin to experience some of this type of effect. So I worked out that this solar program connects with the electromagnetic fields, with the poles, and I worked out that the psi bank consists of a set of structures which correspond to the mirror symmetry Tzolk'ins in 4 pairs, and that I'd worked out how actually when we look, there was one other factor I had worked out, and that was when you look at the structure, the program of the codons that are presented that cover the whole psi bank, because here, if you look at this, here's one plate, 2 plates, the 3rd plate, and the 4th plate. Each of these plates has 16 codons. Each plate governs 16 codons, okay? So the first plate governs 16 codons, the second another 16, the third and the fourth. These codons are also occur in relationship to the north and the south magnetic fields, okay? So that I noticed that in the running of when I ran the codons through the magic square, that in the northern magnetic field, you have codons 1 to 16, and you have codons 49 to 64. That's all. These are all in the northern magnetic field, and the southern magnetic field, you have a whole the whole stretch from 17 through 48. So I saw that what happens is that you have a sequence of codons that goes from actually, it's interesting, the codons 1 through 8 occur in this part here, and then the 9 through 16 occur here, and then you get then there's a big run that goes to 17, and then the codons 17 through 48 occur in a pattern that's very mirror pattern to that runs down here, but it's a whole sequence here, and then when you get to when you finish with codon 48, that then you go to 49, and then you finish 49 through 64. Well, as I contemplated that, I saw, well, the 1 through 16 describes, it creates what's called a primary strand, okay? I saw that, well, that's the aboriginal strand. In the DNA, all the DNA, there's 2 strands that create the double helix of the DNA, and the double helix of the DNA is, we can also look at very much when we look at this pattern, the green pattern, the loom of Maya pattern over here, because you have one strand that would begin at the upper left here, and that runs down, and then it would jump and come over here, and then it comes out again over here, okay? The other strand actually starts down here, jumps, comes over here, and then ends up there. So this is a basic model of the crossover polarity that creates the double helix pattern of the DNA, okay? So in actuality, one strand is created first, and then from that, the second strand is duplicated. And I saw that's exactly what was happening in the patterning of the codons, that you had the 1 through 16 create one whole half pattern, which actually from that, the entire pattern can be created. So when that half pattern is created up here, then it jumps down here, and the whole structure is created. And then it jumps back up again here and completes the other structure, because this pattern here is a symmetrical structure of the other part of the symmetry is implicit. So once that's created, then it jumps below and creates the whole pattern down here and then goes back up. Well, I saw that there was a process involved here. And I would just describe this process as on the upper part as the AC and the lower part as the CA. And that the AC I referred to as the aboriginal continuity, okay, that the primary strand creates the aboriginal continuity from which the secondary strand can be created. Likewise, at an even more primary level, it's the crystal, in terms of the whole cosmological process, it's the crystal that maintains a cosmic aboriginal continuity, and it's the DNA life itself which is the secondary reflex. That's how the law of time defines it. That's why it's interesting how these crystals keep showing up right now. The crystal is actually the aboriginal continuity. We are, as DNA, the reflex pattern of the crystal. So our fascination with crystals is because we want to complete, through consciousness, the process that was begun through the crystalline order. So the AC, which is the 1 through 16, and then and also the 49 through 64, create what's called the AC, the aboriginal continuity, and the CA, the 17 through 48, that creates a whole process which is the reverse of that. Instead of AC, CA, which I refer to in Earth Ascending as a civilizational advance. And so in other words, I saw the structure, the process 1 through 16 basically describes a prehistoric, pre-literate process, the establishment of life. The movement 17 through 48 describes the whole complete structure, which is the historical process or the civilizational advance, that then civilization reaches a point where it can advance no more, and then the movement then returns from 49 up to and to complete through the 64, and that's post-history. So when I had worked all that out, and you can study that in the maps of Earth Ascending. I'll show you. I think if we look at this movement pattern, map 34 represents this entire, what I'm talking about, this movement pattern, that on the upper part, you have the creation of one half of that structure, and then the movement goes down here. This whole structure is created, and then the movement comes here and completes the missing symmetry of the upper half, okay? So, and then I noticed that that's how it's programmed on the side bank, but I noticed when then you put it like this, then it looks like it's a dual template. There's the primary template of the creation of man and woman, as we would say. This is the primary template, and that the feminine part is the upper part and the masculine part is below, and then we go back to complete the feminine part. That's why the CA represents precisely the historical process where the masculine is complete, but the feminine is yet to be completed, so that when we go back into the post-historical cycle, then the feminine stage is to be completed, and then the whole order is done. Now, when I had completed all of this, that was all that was missing. I knew one thing, that there was two movements that crossed over this magnetic dividing line, which is the same as the equator. The one movement I call is the crossing the corpus callosum, because there's just two places where it crosses over. The corpus callosum, just this very narrow piece of muscle here that connects the two hemispheres. I also saw that this was very much the structure of the model of the two hemispheres of the brain, and that the corpus callosum is just a little bit there, and we also know that the one side, the left controls the right, and the right controls the left, and that's just a little crossover polarity where that occurs. And so I referred to this part here as the crossing the corpus callosum. You cross once when you go from prehistory to history, And then you cross again when you go from history to post-history. From 16 to 17 is the process of going from prehistory to history. From 48 to 49 is the process of going from history to post-history. And so I also knew from my study of the I Ching that if you take these as hexagrams, that the 48th hexagram is the well. Okay, and there's, in the I Ching, of the 64 hexagrams, only 2 hexagrams refer to man-made objects. The one is hexagram 48, which refers to the well, and the other one is hexagram 50, which refers to the cauldron. Hexagram 50 is right there. So, and I saw that the movement went from 48 to 49 to 50. And it's interesting that between the 2 man-made objects in the I Ching is the hexagram 49, 7 squared, which is revolution. And so I said, okay, there's going to be a revolution. It's going to be a revolution of some kind, but I didn't know when it was going to occur, and I didn't know how we could actually activate the Psi Bank. So that was where my work took me when I had completed Earth Ascending. I knew that some kind of revolution was imminent, and it was a revolution that's ordained not by man but by nature and by God, because this is an inevitable movement. Okay, whereas we're saying we just take get on the bus and fill our slot, because this is already moving. Okay, this is a much bigger movement pattern. I refer to these larger movement patterns as psycho-atmospheric weather fronts. And so I knew that we were, when I finished this text, I knew that we were on the verge of a large psycho-atmospheric weather front that was going to take us from history to post-history. But I didn't know how or when that exactly was going to take place. Several years later, when I completed the Mayan factor, then I knew that this whole area of the CA, the 17 through 48, that corresponded precisely to the 13 Baktun cycle of history. In other words, at 3113 BC was when we went from the 16 to the 17, and that the whole process of the 13 Baktun cycle was taking us from through the whole process of history, where we were creating this whole civilizational advance. The whole structure was being created, just like we are now here at the end of history. Everything that has ever been thought of or known is on the internet. Okay, so we've kind of made an externalized form of the Psi Bank on the internet. It's a model of it, but it's not the pure thing. We still will get through that. We need that we need it to get through it. And then we'll get to that place where it's just a pure Psi Bank telepathic field, or what is referred to as the noosphere. So from the Mayan factor, I knew that this whole lower part from 17, the movement from 17 through 48 was the same as the 13 Baktun cycle of history, and that once we started doing the Rinri project, then I said, okay, now we're opening the Psi Bank. Okay, we finally got to that stage. Now I know how we're activating the Psi Bank. The activation of the Psi Bank, I saw the first stage of the activation was the 4-year process which describes the 4 years of the First World Peace, from the blue self-existing storm year through the day out of time this year, the white resonant mirror. That's why this day out of time is so important, because this is the first full activation of the Psi Bank that we are completing. So I saw, well, that could only happen because we discovered the law of time, and we began to know how to coordinate ourselves in time. Once we knew how to coordinate ourselves in the right timing frequency, then we were able to figure out how to access the Psi Bank. Okay, and so all that was missing was to figure out exactly the timing of when this was going to occur. When actually are we making the crossing over from history, from the well of history, which is 48, to the revolution of time, which leads to the cauldron of post-history, if you wanted to put it in that languaging of the hexagrams. In the commentary to revolution, it says in the image of revolution, fire in the lake. Thus, the superior man sets the calendar in order. So it's very obvious that this had everything to do with the world calendar reform. That we have to set the calendar in order, and then we will establish the revolution. This fire in the lake, the image of revolution. Thus, the superior man sets the calendar in order. So I knew that was the key to that part there. And then the next question was, well, exactly when was that occurring? Because we had set the calendar in order, we could begin to understand much more deeply this whole process. We could activate the side bank. We could begin to establish the RINRI project and look to the point of the first stage of the fifth part of the holonomic equation, which is man and nature synthesized, that we could create the rainbow bridge. So that was pretty much where I had gotten to when I had completed the dynamics of time. I put all that together. You see, it's very interesting how all of this works. There's something that I had put this book together. This book came together through me because of frustration at the fact that the Art Planet Chronicles couldn't be published. And then that was done. I wasn't sure where that was going to go. A lot more of it got clearer in the Mayan factor, but it wasn't in time yet. But once we got to the law of time and then up to the RINRI project, then I began to see how this was finally coming into time, okay? And that's the important point, is how do we come into time, okay? And when we come into time, then as it describes in the dynamics of time, when we come into time, then our view, our cosmological self-perception shifts very radically. Mm-hmm. And they thought they were having trouble with us, huh? First we have our 911 fire alarm. Okay. Good. As I said, when we come into time, things definitely shift very radically, and that our cosmological self-perception shifts very radically, so that then we're able to go into, instead of, from the point of view of space is infinite, but from the point of view of time, space is an infinitely locatable point. And that's the radical shift, because when we shift into time, then we become the point of space. All of the space that you're experiencing is just a function of your perceptions. It's just a function of your perceptions. We can extend our perceptions through things like the Hubble telescope or micro telescopes, but it's still just our perceptions, okay? And those perceptions are organized nowhere else but inside of us, okay? You're not absolutely ultimately seeing anything outside of yourself. Everything that you're seeing, just a function of your perceptions. Okay, so then we take back, okay, I accept that, and so when I accept that, then I can accept that from the point of view of time. Space is an infinitely locatable point. Me, you, and all of us is that point. Each one of us holds a point, an infinitely locatable point, which is space, okay? And it's time that is infinite, and not space. And the infinitude of time is, as I said, is much better described by the model that Soviet science has come up with. The bottom here, what you see, this toroidal model, okay, in which you have different Möbius DNA double helix forms of Möbius strips that feed into a large flux tube, okay? And that describes the actual process of time, okay? And that, of course, we're just a little speck in there. And, of course, from our perceptions, if our perceptions are just completely conditioned by the types of mentally conditioned by the instruments of time that we use, of course, we're going to come up with very, very limited views of the universe. This Russian science never discounted the reality of consciousness, that the consciousness was a factor, an organismic factor of the universe, and so it could come up with a very different, very, very dynamic model, very much in contrast to what we call the flat universe model. So this was very much where I got to with the completion of the dynamics of time. And then I had worked on these problems for many years, from the time I've been working with Earth Ascending, and then once I've been beginning to work with the telectonon, I started looking at how the 64 codons work with the cube, okay, and I started thinking, well, the 64 codons, that's 4 by 16. I said, well, if you take each cube position and you quarter it, then you have 64 positions within the cube. But I didn't know exactly how that was to function in time. But then it was on the magnetic serpent day of the rhythmic moon, the 27th day of the rhythmic moon, early in 1997, when I was, Bolonik and I were sitting down talking, and somehow or other I was thinking about the cube and the 64 codons, and then boom, it was like that thing upstairs, whatever that was. It hit me, and I saw the whole process. I saw exactly how we were going to finish the activation. The problem was, how are we going to finish the activation? How are we going to consciously finish this, where we go complete the stages 49 through 64. And one thing, how that was triggered. Let's see, you erase through again. Okay. Let's see. In the structure and the playing structure of the telectonon. Is that a better one? In the playing structure of the telectonon, you have this is you break down the cube journey, and it comes down like this. And in the playing structure, the telectonon, this represents the plane of mind, and represents the first year of prophecy, 1993-94 year, the magnetic seed year. And the dragon, wind, night, seed, these form the first 4 quarters of that year. Then you have this then is the second year, the 1994-95 year, and the 4 quarters of that year, okay, which was the lunar moon year, the stellar year. There we go. If it's for me, tell them I'm busy. Okay. Then in and this is the plane of spirit also. Just these 4. The 1 through 4 is the plane of mind. 5 through 8 is the plane of spirit. And then 9 through 12 here, this is the plane of will, and that corresponded to the 4 quarters of the 3rd year, the electric wizard year. 1995, 96. And here we were in 1997, we're in the divine source telectonon, which is the four, and this is from 13 to 16, 14, 15, the first, second, third, and fourth quarters. And we were actually at that point there on the 27th day of the rhythmic moon on the red magnetic serpent. And this is the fourth year, which was the Kali year. And it says in the telectonon that when we get to the fifth year, when we complete this process here, that then the cube explodes, okay? That the cube explodes, and that instead of having just the planimetric foundation of the cube, that the cube explodes in the fifth year when we get to the overtone seed, kin 44, and the cube explodes, and we're actually dealing with a three-dimensional cube. And I didn't know what that was going to mean, but then on the red serpent, magnetic serpent, on the 27th day of the rhythmic moon, it was very, very clear that I was sent reeling, literally reeling backwards. And I saw the whole thing. I saw, oh, I see, the cube explodes, and in the next 16 years of 97 through the day out of time in 2013, I saw the whole structure of the next 16 years and the unfolding of the entire PsyBank and of the entire DNA code over time. Okay, as I said, the DNA was discovered in completely 1260 conditions, and the DNA has been manipulated and alienated from life in completely 1260 conditions. We're creating horrible things like genetically modified food, and which are furthered by biotechnology stocks and NASDAQ and all of that kind of stuff, which is totally, totally, totally anti-natural and anti-cosmic and destructive to our health and everything else. So I said, aha, and I finally saw the correction of the DNA in time, in 1320 frequency, and this was, it came in a very huge blast. As I said, it was kind of like whatever it was that happened at that moment there, bouncing on my head and throwing me backwards, and then I was placed, then that was around, as I said, on the 27th day of the rhythmic moon, and then for the next 16 days or so, I was very much like in the same situation that had occurred when the telectonon prophecy first happened. A very similar situation occurred. What's this here? I had been working on understanding what was coming to me as the Quetzalcoatl project, and the Quetzalcoatl project I saw was a 10-year cycle, actually corresponding to the first appearance of supernova 1987A in Quetzalcoatl in 1987, just before the harmonic convergence, and then the next phase. I saw that actually created a whole structure. I was working on that, and I was trying to see how all that fit, and then boom, this whole thing struck, and there were a lot of things occurred. This is the original of this program here, just called Retrieving the Divine Plan. I was placed in what I refer to as the radial or the radiosonic time tunnels, and information was imploding inside of me, and I was very, very absorbed, to say the least, day and night for the next 2 weeks. And after more or less 2 weeks, I wrote these words here. Like Valum Votan, I am here on behalf of the universal religion on earth, for having remained steadfast and totally devoted to my mission at age 58, 19 plus 39. I was born in 1939. And so age 58, 19 plus 39, the entire pattern of my life is now revealed as the prophetic code of Valum Votan, the closer of the cycle, divine instrument of the final revelation and dispensation, Telektonon, Earth Spirit Speaking Tube, 16-year cube of the law. The prophetic code of Valum Votan is the final stitching of the Quetzalcoatl project, the prophetic code name given to the universal religion's guardianship of planet Earth, Velatropa 24.3. So when I had been working on the Quetzalcoatl project, I saw that the outer form, the blue form, was actually the protector, the Arcturian protectorate of the Earth, and then in the center there you have the beginning of the creation of what's referred to as the fourth dimensional time shift. The whole of the 20 tablets of the law of time was produced in a 28-day cycle, and I saw that it was actually the same as a Telektonon tube. Okay, so that's why it takes that form there, and I understood completely then how the 64 codons were a function of the cube of the law, and how the 64 codons were to be completely telepathically connected with for their correction and for the correction of life on Earth. As I said, that by returning to the correct time, we normalize and regularize the biomass constant. That's our responsibility to do that, because we're the ones who made the deviation. And so it's called retrieving the divine plan, because the way to do that, to take responsibility to do that, was then the revelation of the 20 tablets of the law of time, so that now the means to correct the deviation of the DNA was now being placed in human hands. And with this, then, we could begin a process where we take responsibility for the harmonization of the DNA through our own involvement and through our own application of telepathic procedures that are coordinated by time, 1320 times. If it were not for this little calendar, once again, if it were not for this little calendar, none of this would be possible. That all of this has come about because we've discovered the key. And like it says in the hexagram 49, fire in the lake, the image of revolution as the superior person sets the calendar in order, okay? So, and makes the seasons clear. Right now the seasons are unclear because we have the global warming, we have the ozone depletion, and we also know that through various means that the organizations like NASA are messing with the weather. So we have to make the seasons clear, we have to set the calendar in order, and we have to take absolute responsibility for the disorder that we've created. We're not going to get out of here until we take responsibility for the disorder that we created. And so this is also the meaning of the final, of the end times, that we actually do have the revelation of the means and the processes to correct the situation. We have an analysis of what has gone wrong with the situation. It took 28 days to do the basic decoding of the 20 tablets of the law of time. It took another 24 days to complete the texts and the whole process. So it was a precise 52-day cycle that occurred which was actually precisely the blue western castle and the dream spell from Red Magnetic Serpent to its completion on Yellow Cosmic Warrior was precisely 52 days. Fortunately, we were at our base camp there. We had Chris Hatfield, who was very, very skilled on the computer and who helped me to, I said, we have to get this up immediately on the computer. And so we did, so that by the time, by the time of early April, we were in Costa Rica, and here you have a photograph of myself holding up at a press conference the 20 tablets of the Law of Time. It was exactly, this was on the day this press conference in Costa Rica occurred. It was, of course, a UFO conference. Because remember, I'm a contactee. I'm a walking, talking semiconductor chip of time. I'm a loaded time release. It was the day Yellow Magnetic Warrior that this occurred. It was exactly 91 days from the beginning of being struck by the revelation of the 20 tablets to the point where we actually had press and media confirmation of the fact that we were delivering the 20 tablets. 91 days, of course, is 13 weeks. Okay, precisely, which was the entire, as I said, the whole of it was done in 52 days, the Blue Western Castle, and then another 39 days later, it was complete enough so that we could present this at this press conference in Costa Rica. It was very interesting. It was a perfect 91-day cycle from the beginning point when it struck me to the actual declaration of here. Guess what? I've shown up with the 20 tablets of the Law of Time, even though no one's going to understand this right now. But we came out of that press conference, and we stopped at a little store, and were you with us then at that point? Yeah, Mark, Red Spectral Skywalker. Cummings was with us at that time, and someone went in the store, and they came out and they said, look at this, and there was a report that there was a major coronal mass ejection that occurred that very day that we're giving the press conference that will be rolling and hitting the Earth the next couple of days. And they said it was the second major one of the year. The first one had occurred 91 days earlier. So we said, okay, this is what we're talking about. I'm happy to declare that I now know I'm one of the first biosolar telepaths on Earth. I function with these solar flares, and that's really all of our future, because I'm just one of you.
I think there's something back there that, Randy, could you turn around and bring what's back there on the board up here, please? Someone has sent a beautiful bouquet of flowers right there, Randy. Randy, awareness. Oh, sorry, you didn't know. He didn't know. These flowers have come for this man, and I feel it's really important to be very humble at this moment with this man, because this is a human being who had to go through every bit of pain and blood and sweat and tears to do what he's done. And it's easy for us to receive the 20 tablets. They're printed, they're all done. Wow, we get so smart so fast. But it's really meaningless if we don't at least remember that somebody in human form had to bring this information to us. So I only say that so we remember to respect the man who was the chosen instrument. He didn't decide to do this. He is the chosen instrument of God to bring through these codes so that we can have a future for our children. So this is a profound moment, Spectral Skywalker. Skywalker, Spectral Monkey. Wow. I looked at Mark and then I went, here you go. Wow. Blue Spectral Monkey. Let's have some good pictures of the Spectral Monkey with his flowers. Wow. Happy birthday from Lupita and all the grand. Happy birthday to you. So, yeah, we'll continue in the late afternoon and enjoy your Earth family and enjoy the celebration of Spectral Monkey Day. Happy birthday. There's more coming, Spectral Monkey. Uh-oh. You're not going to get away with this without a celebration. Wow, look at all the candles are being lit. Why don't we make some kind of a big circle here? Yeah. Here we are. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Valum Votan. Happy birthday to you. Wow, you got to hold that one up now. Oh, should we take it out? How do we do it? Okay. We tip it up.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, give me that.
Now you're ready. Now speech.
Okay. Well, I think that I need a lot of help. If I eat this all by myself, you'll never hear about the 20 tablets. So I was just warming up to the 20 tablets, but I'm going to be on a big sugar high, I can tell. So I want everybody to be on a sugar high with me, and I'm really moved.